when I do that, I can't find the go live. I have to make it big. And then, so that's, anyway, so that's what's going on. It's not that big a deal.
Well, I just thought you were incompetent, so I'm glad you explained that.
Well, it's a little bit of that too. All right. We're live. Oh, and I'm the hostess with the mostess. Good afternoon, morning still. And welcome to our Postcast. We are the Christian Indie Writers. I'm Jennifer. She's Jamie. She's Tina. She's Rhonda. We had lots of tech issues today, but we were conquering them, kind of. So.
Yes, and so here we are coming to you as live as we typically are for the Postcast, which is not, but
it's recorded,
still.
But yeah.
It's working. This is the important thing.
That's the important thing. Actually, I should probably go on to YouTube to make sure that it's actually working, but for sure.
Okay, so yeah. Thanks for anybody who's watching. Tell your friends.
All right, so if this is your first time watching our Postcast, the way this works is that we are giving you a little bit of a taste of what our writing group is like. We have submitted a couple days in advance pieces of writing that are edited that we are looking for feedback. Now, there are different forms or different layers, or that's not even the word I'm looking for. There are different levels of editing. Some of us are looking for developmental help. Some of us are looking for, like, really this is the last end. Like, I want you just to tell me if there's any mistakes. I'm ready to submit this. And some of us are looking for other things. But it's something where we are going to not just give positive feedback. We are actually going to give useful, constructive criticism to each other to help us to better our writing and to further our careers, because that's the goal. That's the purity of a good writing group, is that it's not a competition. It's not about trying to show how smart you are and how much more I know about this or you know about that when it comes to editing. It's really about helping each other to improve ourselves. So that's what you are about to witness here. Jamie, did you by chance do a randomizer for us today?
No, you got me all caught up in the, I wonder what terrible things they're going to say about my stuff that Jennifer has to do such a long explanation of. Now, when we criticize, we're just trying to be helpful. Just kidding.
No, the only reason I did that was because I did a really, really great selling job on the podcast today. So we're going to have 100 new, subscribers, and I just want to let them know what's going on.
You did a really good job, and I can't wait until we have a bunch of more people letting us know how we've helped them, because I really have embraced this as sort of a ministry of ours. It took me a long time to put my head around the fact that that's what we're doing, but I think it is. So let us help you the way that we're helping each other. So forgive me for teasing you a little bit, Jen, because really I do think what you said has a lot of value.
I really, really hate getting teased. It never happens.
Oh, no. Randomizer let me down. Oh, no.
Are you first?
Yes.
Never happens. Awesome.
All right. Jamie, Tina, Jen, Rhonda. I think Randomizer took the day off and just repeated back to me the names in the order I put them in. I think the site is down. Do you want me to try another site?
No. There are no tech issues now.
So it's Jamie, Tina, Jen, Rhonda. And I am going to go into the isolation booth because that's what I need. I need to know how this piece works. I will explain that there is a writing contest in a Facebook group that I'm in, and the challenge is to write a story in your preferred genre. Oh, well, thanks. That's vague for me, right? So I just wrote something. Actually, I went in and fixed up something that I had started once upon a time, and here it is for your critiquing pleasure. And with that, I will go to the isolation booth, unless you have any questions for me before you start.
Nope.
Okay, I'll silence myself because it hurts a lot less.
All right, who wants to go first?
Well, I can't find my notes, so you guys go, and I'll pipe in when I remember something that I said in my notes.
Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. So I went through, I did find some editing, a few editing issues, and I did mark those. I really, really like, I'm not a light fantasy fan. I'm a fantasy fan at all. But I did enjoy this. I think that she's really great about writing characters because they just kind of come alive on there. I loved the Drogue. I don't know if she pronounces it Drog, but the text to voice function on my computer called it a Drogue, so that's what I'm calling it. I thought that was adorable. All right, so some of the issues I had. So one of the questions that she asked at the beginning is she wanted to know that she was looking for suggestions, title suggestions, and then she's also she wanted to know if we felt that it was a light fantasy or not. I do think it's a light fantasy, that I agree with. I'm trying to get to my notes here. Usually I have this typed out or written out, handwritten, but she was wanting us to send it to her. So my me is, if this is a short story, for me at least, it didn't feel like it was a completely finished work. Like, for me, it left like too many questions, and I didn't feel like there was a shattering moment. So before I maybe go in further, maybe you guys can agree or disagree with that. We can discuss that, whether you guys thought there was a shattering moment. And then I'll talk about the questions that were left, for me at least. What do you guys think? Did you feel like it was a complete short story?
I did.
Okay. What was the shattering moment that I missed?
Well, I think it's down where I made some pretty substantial changes to some things in here. I was looking for her original so I could compare them apples to apples, but I think when he found out that Lumi was willing to, or not only willing, but I don't know. Okay, maybe the shattering moment was actually, she said, come back and see me when the moon is full. You know, maybe that would be the shattering moment for me.
So for me, that was a question I had, but what do you think, Tina?
Yeah, I agree with Rhonda. I think it was that last line.
Okay.
That kind of makes you go, oh, yeah.
Well, so that just caused more questions for me. For me, I was like, why the full moon? And like,
Really?
no, I get what she's getting at. I get that she is that the author is trying to like make it out that that's when they are going to have sex. Okay, I get that. But like, why? There's like no hint at anything before this that the full moon is anything significant. And so I feel like if that's the shattering moment and we're supposed to go, oh, then I think there needs to be something earlier in the piece about the full moon. There needs to be some sort of, and the other question I had was, why would a child give her security? Like, what in the world in this world would do that? And as I'm reading, I'm not saying that this is poorly written. It's very well written. But what it does is it gives me questions to where I want to turn the page and read the next chapter. But there's not a next chapter. So that's my biggest critique, is that well written, you put me on the edge and I'm like, I want to know more about this, but there is no more. So I was left more disappointed than I was feeling satisfied. And to me, I didn't feel like that was a shattering moment. Now, if she had set it up, in my opinion, if she had set it up earlier that there was something significant with the full moon or whatever, and then all of a sudden she said come back to the full moon, and you're like, oh, and then the story's done because you know what's going to happen. I don't understand or know enough about this world to know what's going to happen.
Well, I think simply because it's a fantasy, that last line was all I needed, because it goes back to the lore of, women's cycles and the full moon and all that sort of thing, and that she'd be guaranteed to have a child and all that. And I think the old your farm's you're not going to succeed if you don't have children to carry on or to help you or whatever. So I think those were just sort of all wrapped up into mores that people would know. And then to have it end like that, I also wanted to know more, but that's part of reading short stories, is you get to fantasize about your own ending.
I think part of Jen's questions is the fact that she doesn't read fantasy.
Probably.
Because I feel like those questions that you have are like tropes of fantasy.
Okay. Yeah.
And so with people that read fantasy would all automatically know that the full moon has significance in pretty much all fantasy stories. And so that's how I feel.
Okay. I'm completely legitimate. I can be behind that.
Okay. I made some changes. She wanted an edit for this.
So I went ahead and I just edited. I did not restrain myself. I did not try to make it into my own piece, but I did make a few changes here and there. I didn't see like a lot of like misspellings and that sort of thing, but there was a little bit of passive voice in it. So I changed a few of those, not all of them, because I know part of it was the voice and that sort of thing. But I'll read the second paragraph. I wasn't able to bring up the original quickly enough, so you'll just have to read the original on your own. So in the second paragraph, this is some of the changes I made. Murph's smile dissolved as he noticed the telltale strands of silver in Apple's otherwise jet black underbelly and shriveled rear legs. Those caused his friend to walk with a crooked gait and half the pace of the other drugletats who followed their masters around Old Newtown. Murph remembered how winded his drug became the last time it spread his misshapen wings in the town center's grassy area where people, children, and drugs socialized. He recalled Apple struggling alone, yet seemingly unfazed by his solitude, happy enough to half swoop and half fall as the other drugs scampered beneath him or soared above him on their younger, fully formed legs and wings. So just to let her know when she reads this, I thought the story was great. I loved it. But there were a couple areas where I thought it could be sped up a little bit just for the tempo and the passive voice, of course, because I really work on that because I know that's my problem. So I am sensitive to that. And so that's just an example of some things I moved around. It will not hurt my feelings at all if she doesn't take any of the changes. If she submits it just like it was yesterday, there's just like one or two misspellings and a couple extra commas, and that's it.
All right, Tina, do you have anything to say? I know you don't have your notes in front of you, but
Yeah, like Rhonda said, there was like some misspellings and some stuff like that I picked up on, but I actually read through it the first time, just really excited to read the story, and it felt pretty clean and complete to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to actually go back with the intention of trying to find stuff on the second pass. So anything that I found was just minor. So that's...
I forgot to say my favorite part was the slap, slap, swish, squeeze, spread.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else? Do you guys have any suggestions for a title?
I just put a home for Apple, but really that doesn't have anything to do with the shattering moments. And I know it's not a good title anyway. I understand why she had a hard time coming up with a title for it.
Yeah, since I don't read fantasy, I don't really have any like reference point, so like it was really hard for me to come up with a title for her too. The only thing I saw was like within the first paragraph, the raptured bliss stood out to me as beautiful words next to each other. She has a few things like that in there, like silver strands, and I don't know, like if she just wants to find a beautiful phrase within it and just use that. But yeah.
That brings up something that I noticed when I was reading this, and I've noticed it before, but it really stood out to me while I was working on it, is that there are some writers who just say the words and get the idea out. But then there are other writers who make the words that go together flow. And Jamie's really good at doing that.
I agree. Maybe she should focus on Lumi, like maybe the story, and not her name, but just the laundress. Or
oh yeah,
the not the laundress request, because the request of the laundress, or so, I don't know. Focus on request or focus on laundress, maybe something like that.
Can I come out now?
Mm-hmm. Excuse you.
No, I am in control. Okay, yeah.
Oh, Tina, did you have a name?
You did yourself, Jamie, and then started talking.
All of my names that I could think of had the word drog in them because I just really loved that word.
Oh, yeah.
And the little creatures. So I didn't have a very good... I didn't have a luck coming up.
What do you think of the title, The Ask, or The Asking? Because I wonder if it would help you also to reframe the story, because the theme that I was trying to work on with the piece was courage, and how the man lacked courage throughout the piece and ended up not needing courage because the woman ended up taking the lead in the situation. And the shattering moment was supposed to be when she revealed that she had affection, be it a different kind of affection or not, for Murph. That was supposed to be the shattering moment, because the buildup was he's trying so hard to find the courage to ask her to keep his dog, and prays for it and wishes for it and doesn't ever get it. So it's possible that I like missed the mark, and we could argue about that, whether or not the shattering moment is strong enough. But if you frame this, like if you read the title, The Asking or The Ask, would that help you to maybe get into the fact that that's what this is all about a little better? Would that title work?
Yes, if we get inside his head a little bit more at that point. The minute he realizes, like I would like to see him be a little bit more introspective when he realizes that now she's asking something of him. He was worried about the asking, and here she is asking of him.
Like, yeah, that could work. It could just be a couple of lines even in there.
Right. That would be horrible if it was more than a couple lines. I think just a couple lines using the term the asking.
Yeah.
Would really bring it together, and I think would help me see it more as a shattering moment. Yes.
And then the title would also work.
Yes.
So it wouldn't even have to have the word asking in it, but just something that alludes to this thing of like, oh my goodness, I was worried about this, and here, there's, whatever. So you all are picking up what I'm saying.
It might not need the term or the word asking, but I would like it. If you're going to title it asking, I would like him to actually make the asking a noun. You know what I mean? Like make it be the event.
I think he did at one point.
Yeah, he mentioned it in the beginning. Yeah.
No, but I meant at this point when he's being retrospective is what I meant. But I mean, again, you're the writer, so whatever you choose to do, that's just a suggestion.
Well, your feedback is all really super helpful. Yeah, bummer that the shattering moment didn't come through. I mean, did it work for you at all, Tina? Did you feel the story was complete and had a shattering moment?
Yeah, I did.
I did feel that it read as the beginning of an epic adventure for Murph. I really did feel that it read that way, but I did also feel that it was complete as is, so that it kind of left me to be like, well, is this chapter 1 or is this a short story? And a lot of the stories that stick with me kind of do that to me and leave the people in a situation to where I wonder what happened when they finally reunited or kind of whatever. But I get that that's going to not be satisfying for some. And if I'm missing the mark in the craft of telling a short story, it's something also that I have to consider. So the criticism is very fair. What else did we talk about?
So if you're going to do the asking thing, what we talked about, and you pause there a little bit longer, if you pause at when he realizes that she's now asking something of him, that would make it a much more shattering moment, I think. So that I don't think you've missed the mark. I think I just need more of the mark for myself to catch it. And then I kind of like the idea, this is, again, a choice, but after she says, come back to see me when the moon is full, if he were to somehow say in his mind, how could he refuse her? Or how could he, I don't know, like, I kind of like the idea of in his head, earlier in the story, him saying, kind of like, he's worried that she's going to refuse him, and then now he's like, how could I refuse her? Or something, I don't know. That's just a choice, though, kind of. But I think if you pause longer at your shattering moment and we're inside his head a little bit longer, I think it'll be a win, a complete win.
Awesome. Yeah. So you guys gave me exactly what I was asking for. I think there may have been. Okay, so this is not a romance. Is this a fantasy romance? Like, I don't even know if light fantasy is like a genre. So when I turn it in, how do I present it?
A light fantasy is a genre because I researched it, because when you said light fantasy, I'm like, I better figure out what light fantasy is before I rather tell her if it is or not. So it is a genre. Awesome. I would not call this a romance because she is. We only get a little snippet, right? So we're not inside her head at all. But from what I see, she's only looking for procreation. He has feelings. She doesn't necessarily have feelings. So I wouldn't call it a romance.
But I mean, as far as the genre, like it would be disappointing. So if I pitched it as a romance, it would disappoint because it's only his perspective. Is that what you're saying? Like it would disappoint readers of the genre?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's no romance in it. It's like she said, just procreation.
Right.
And she's got affection for the drug, but you don't see affection for him, really. I don't.
And he doesn't really have affection for her. He just is. Well, she kind of mentions it, but it almost seems more like sexual attraction than romance. And it is a difference.
Right.
I mean, there should be both when you're romantically involved, but
yeah, we know he's not a prude anymore, and she's in her undies.
yeah, right. So why wouldn't he be? Right? Agreed.
Awesome. Yes, all of that is very helpful. You guys rock. And please, Tina, if you find, just in case your typos that you noticed are different than Jen's, I'd like to submit this as clean as possible. So I want to make sure that I erase all those extra commas and stuff like that.
If I don't find it, I'll go through it again.
Oh, I appreciate that, Tina. Sorry. I know it takes away from your own.
Horrible. I don't know what happened.
Jamie, I just emailed you a share from a Google Doc. I just emailed it to you.
Thank you.
I mean, there's a ton of changes that I made. And like I said, it's not going to offend me if you don't use any of them, but I really like the story and I just couldn't help myself.
Do you like the drugs?
I do. I do. I really like Athel a lot. He's a cool drug.
I love Athel. Poor Athel. But he's totally down with staying with Lumi. See you later, Murph.
Yeah.
She's a babe.
He doesn't care about his legs. He's cool.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm glad that they came alive for you. That was a goal there. So I really appreciate all your help, you guys. Thank you a million times over.
All right.
All right.
Tina is next, correct?
Oh, okay.
Yes, Tina is next.
I'm pulling yours up, Tina. I didn't realize because yours is Word, not a PDF like the rest of ours, and so now I got to wait for Word to boot, and on my old computer.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Tina, tell us, what is it you're looking for from us?
I don't really know. I just know that.
Tell us your mindset when you were writing this.
I needed something to submit.
Okay. That was my suspicion.
Wait, when you wrote this just to submit it, or you went looking for this? Like, she was asking what was your mindset when you wrote it?
I went looking for something that I could submit that you guys hadn't read before, and I found like the first paragraph of this. I had started, I don't know, there was a call for submission a while back for a fantasy short, and there were some guidelines. I don't remember what they were anymore. And I just found that first paragraph, and I decided just to explore where it went and write on the end of it. Because I remembered what my intention was going to be back then for the end of the story. So I stuck with that idea that I had back then. And so, yeah, so I just general feedback, I guess.
Do you know who Piers Anthony is?
This sounds familiar.
Okay. That's all I want to know.
All right, Tina, you're in isolation, Tina.
All right.
All right, Rhonda, you want to go first with your, you look like you're so ready to.
Okay. Do you two know who Piers Anthony is?
Nope. I do.
Oh.
Okay. Have you read any of his Xanth series?
Maybe. The problem is I really liked On a Pale Horse and that whole series of all of the changing of time and all that.
Okay. That's a different series.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I know Xanth at all to be able to comment on it.
Okay, well, this is from the Xanth series. It's not from the Xanth series, but it could slip right in there. Okay, so what Xanth is, it's a satirical fantasy series. And there's, I don't know, by now there's like 23 or 24 books in the series. And I haven't read the ones he's written in the last 10 years or so, but I have read, and some of them I've reread the first, I think about 16 of them. They are right up my alley. They speak to my soul. I love this piece of Tina's. I feel like she was kind of joking with this a little bit when she wrote it. I think she was writing, what are they going to think about this? Well, I loved it. It's like she's not playing a joke on us, but she's joking along with us. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I really enjoyed reading this a lot. Anyway, somebody else.
I also enjoyed reading it because I do appreciate the genre. I made a Teletubbies reference in the podcast, and what I was saying is, okay, so my husband used to work in a paint store, and he worked with a guy named Todd. And the way my husband describes Todd is like a little skinny guy with like crazy hair and glasses. And Todd would stand like this and be looking at the television, and Stash would come up and say, "What's going on?" "Shh, Teletubbies is on." And he would seriously like watch Teletubbies. Well, what it was he's like, these people have dropped acid and are writing about their acid trips. And that is what Teletubbies is. So he would watch it with like a critical eye, but my husband never knew if the guy was joking or not because he was like so serious about it and don't interrupt Teletubbies. Do you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So anyway, this kind of just reminded me of like Tina just exploring some fertile ground of her imagination, kind of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, getting on that boat and going down that spiral tunnel, you know? And then it totally had a shattering moment for sure. So that is completely my bread for this. It's a great shattering moment. Maybe some would argue, well, that's been done. But so what? Because it was really surprising. And since it was done well, it like works. My meat would be meat that I would want to give after an edit or two, because I feel like there's some repetition that could be cleaned up. I feel like there's some wishy-washiness about like the man or the wizard, and like I mean there was just some stuff that I didn't do a line edit because that wasn't what she was asking for. So I certainly would say that this piece could use some refining, but the overall shape of it and the way that it heads and stuff like that really worked for me.
I did do a light line editing only because I really want her to polish this up, because I did enjoy it too. But I was with you. There were a few places where I was kind of like, And so I'm glad she told us before we started that she wrote this just to submit. So this wasn't something that she had languishing out there and then she edited. Like it's much more obvious that there are some areas that could use a little bit of polishing. And so I did do a light edit just because I really want to see her do that. But I did enjoy it as well. I think that I lost my train of thought. Wow.
Well, you said you did a line edit, but you were talking maybe about what did work for you, maybe?
I liked that every time he came back, things were changed dramatically. Like, so that really had me. I really was like deep into it, thinking that like, is it time travel? Is there different like not zones, like universes or whatever, like alternate universes and things like that. And so then for me, the shattering moment, that was my favorite part. Like this definitely had a shattering moment. I feel like I was like completely trapped in it, and it was just really good. So that part I really, really enjoyed. But I mean, there were part again, I think that could be cleaned up if she would go back into this, like why was the mom all like married already? Like obviously we know now because we read the end, but yeah, I just really enjoyed it.
I agree with you, because if she's specifically seriously looking for ways to kind of like what problems did you have, Jamie, that you didn't bother to mention, just if you need a guide to go in and fix this, I'm with you, Jen, that the abrupt changes weren't explained in a way that, I mean, I guess that's why it felt like such an acid trip, which I've never been on an acid trip, is a legal disclaimer, but just what has been reported to me, that things just change randomly. And now the reality is this, and the reality is that. And just the boy saying, that's how it is around here, things just changed, was not enough. Like there has to be some finessing of how that joint works. Like I'm thinking there's an elbow joint and it's not revealed to us that's part of the machine, that the things work this way. Maybe there can be a signifying event. Then the thunderstorm came in, and when we woke with the fresh dew, everything was changed. Like there could be a moment that indicates the storm is coming and things will be different or something. So anyway, that part of the mechanics, if that were finesse, that would help for the story to be more a cognitive exercise than just random thoughts put together into a story.
Yeah, because
so it has to be. with those things happening off screen, that's not satisfying.
No, because it really just seemed like until you understood that it was an author, obviously backspacing and deleting and everything, all she kind of does is there's a couple of times, well, that's just how things are around here. And that was just not enough for me. It was just told to me, I guess, is the problem.
Right. And so even as a writer, like, yes, things change, but they don't change that dramatically. You know what I mean? Like, but maybe they do. Like, I agree. I think there was some finessing. You want it to be like unrealistic to where you're hyper focusing in what is going on in the story without being like, this is ridiculous. There's got to be a fine line, I think. But again, this is her first draft. So like, this is probably ridiculous meat because she has lots of time to work on this. So
yeah, it was really, it's just meant to kind of be like, if you don't know what's not working, stuff that you could maybe review and examine for yourself to see if that's something you'd want to tweak.
Right. All right.
Other than that, I mean, I don't have anything really else to say. It was enjoyable and a Teletubby adventure.
Now that makes so much more sense, because when you said it on the podcast, I was like, what? Same thing that she did? Now I get it. I get it now. All right, Tina, come on out.
Oh, we can't hear you.
She's muted.
No, I said come out.
I muted myself because I was in the silence thing.
Yes. Come out.
Thanks for the feedback, guys. I'm glad that you liked the story. I really struggled with what to call him. I think that you probably noticed that. Like, I didn't know what to call him, and I didn't really want to give him a name. And I didn't really want to keep saying the man. So that was one of the things. And I guess I just got tired, and I'm like, okay, I'm not changing it.
Well, as a short story, I think just calling him the man, one or thought of as a wizard, I think is okay. It's like a device that you're using, and I think it's okay. Yeah. If you were going to go any longer, then you would have to like address the fact that like maybe the little boy would say to him, what is your name? And then you could use the name Arthur or something close to author or something close to writer, something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would be like, I don't know. I mean, you could play around with that, but in the form that it is, a short story, a quick write, is it, or whatever, flash fiction, whatever. I think that you use his name, not having a name, as a good device, I think. But
I mean, there's lots of ways you could play around with it if you decided to have fun. I mean, I just have these assumptions about people. And to me, I feel like you might just fiddle around with this piece on a day when you just want a brain bath from editing or something. But you could do fun things like, so you could decide, does the author look different to everybody? Like, does he change also when he appears in the screen? And you can have him one time look into, maybe there's a pond where he always looks and sees what he looks like this time. And, oh, this time I'm a wizard, and so maybe he can also be a part of hinting around at how everything is different every time he visits, you know what I mean? So there's just a lot of ways you could have so much fun with this. But if it's work for you and feeling like a burden and you just don't even want to be bothered, I get that too. Like, yeah. I hear you.
I was trying to figure out a way to artistically describe what happens when he hits delete, but I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. Like, does everything go white and then it comes back? Like, I just didn't know. So I just didn't put it in there.
I like Jamie's idea of maybe not necessarily him seeing his own reflection, but like if you could somehow write it to where, I mean, you call him a wizard, so I just automatically saw him in a robe with a long beard and,
and a pointy hat.
I mean, like, I don't have that great of an imagination, apparently. But like, if you could like somehow write it to where he is in his bathrobe, or he's just wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and everyone else is in these fantastical fantasy-inspired clothes, so that you're like, why is this really normal person in this way out world? Do you know what I'm saying? Like that, as you, and it could still stay a short story, but that might make it a little bit even tastier for me because. Without giving away what's going on. I think it would still make it more believable when we get to that point. Like, oh, now I get it. Because there were no hints along the way. I love the sharing moment, but there was no like, oh, I get it now. There was no like there was nothing that like you clarified. Does that make sense? There was no hints. Yeah. And I like little bits of hints, myself, but. again, a very small piece of meat because I did enjoy it.
All right. I'll keep that in mind. I'll put it in the vault.
Yeah. We all have a big vault, don't we? Man.
Yeah.
All right. Do you feel like you're back as well fed?
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, I am next. And I don't remember what I asked for. What did I submit?
Well, you said by popular demand, here is The Widows of the West.
That's for you, Rhonda.
Like every time you say that, my head adds a whip cracking sound effect.
That's funny.
Yeah.
The Big Valley theme song. You guys know that show? It's an old one.
Ponderosa?
No, Big Valley.
Oh.
The theme song is like dun 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 dun, and in my head I always heard the Big Valley, even though they never sing it. So anyway, my parents.
Every
like
time
those
I hear the
shows.
word Ponderosa, my brain adds rapping to the beat.
I want steak every time I hear it, and a buffet bar.
You guys don't know Daha from the 80s?
Mm-mm.
I was at the Ponderosa rapping to the beat. It's supposed to be John Wayne doing a rap, and he's talking about how when all you kids were still wet behind the ears, I was at the Ponderosa rapping to the beat. And so anyway, every time I hear Ponderosa, I add that.
Who is the artist?
I do not know.
John Wayne, duh. Weren't you listening?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was not paying attention.
All right. So, Jen, what do you want? What do you want from me, Jen?
So this is just a developmental edit, meaning like the story is still very fresh and very much a nano-ish sprinting kind of a thing. I did do a little bit of editing on it. So I'm looking for, if you see caps, it means that's not the word I want, or I don't think it's what I want. So suggestions on that would be great. If you think that something's not working, that would be great. What characters you like, do you not like, and if you have any questions, do you feel like I left like big gaping holes for this chapter at least? So that work?
That works. Right. So off with you to the Chamber of Silence. All right, ladies.
My first question, Jamie, can we start advertising your sick beats?
Oh my goodness, I got Wonder stamped right here. I am not at all a soul kind of a person or a rappy kind of a person, but maybe that's what makes it funny. My husband and I have joked around about letting the kids put us on TikTok, and I even joke that I don't know that it's TikTok and I call it Tic Tac just to be like a dorky mom that doesn't even know what's cool with the kids right now, because my husband and I would be seriously trying to be good dancers, and it would be hilarious for everybody who tuned in, and my children would be famous. They're insisting. Okay, so anyway, let's get going with the Ponderosa rapping to the beat. So Rhonda, what's your second question?
My second question is, why is this novel not complete yet? I would like to finish reading it. Okay, I don't know what is so different about these characters, but I mean, I like the Lansing series. Definitely very readable and enjoyable, but I really am interested in these characters, and I'm not sure what the difference is.
I know what the difference is.
What?
This is a woman experiencing the kind of hardship that you can relate to.
Maybe.
Because the other heroines are pastors' daughters, and their lives are a little upset by things that are not tangible. Mm-hmm. Their internal struggles. This woman is struggling with survival, and if she does, like, her stakes are a lot higher, I think. And it's also relatable for us as people of pioneer ancestry and, red-blooded American spirit will conquer the West. Like, we're just kind of wired that way, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And
so
you're probably right. I just feel like that might be why this is speaking to you so much more. And again, it's not that the other things are bad. Mm-hmm. It's just more relatable possibly to your character.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. Okay. So don't like John. He's a big jerk.
How do you really feel, Rhonda?
Matthew seems like he's going to be just adorable. Let's see. I like people. I like how she's, trying to keep in charge, and she knows what her limitations are, but she's not afraid of these big dumb guys. And waiting for, I don't remember what his name is, to swoop in and save the day. So I'm looking for that any day now. For Audible, I suggested Heard or Noticed, Overblown, Grandiose or Larger Than Life. I kind of like Larger Than Life because obviously he's a little shrimpy guy, and but anyway, Mean. I put Ornery.
Ornery,
yeah, and I really don't have any meat because I know this isn't a complete draft. And as far as the developmental parts, I really think that it's already on a nice track. The only comments I really had for it were that I really appreciate the foreshadowing at the end concerning choices that she has made. And I like how there is different levels of tension. There's the overall tension of the story, and then there's the more immediate tension. So the overall tension is John obviously is going to be a pain in her butt, but the immediate tension of the horses taken off. So I like the different levels, and I don't know if I've really paid much attention to that in a book before, but it was really obvious in this one to me.
Well, Rhonda, maybe then you've answered your own question as to why you feel more invested with these characters, because maybe you just are feeling the stakes on many levels or something.
Could be.
So, yeah, I feel bad. I did not do a line edit for Tina, so there's no doc to share with her. And I did not do one for Jen because mostly I felt like that would be piling on to somebody who's like, come on, I just gave you this thing that's fresh out of Nano. I'm not ready to like hear that yet. Right. But so overall, I'm with you, Rhonda. I like this, love this, can't wait to read it. Bready bread. If I had me, it would just be, I was confused by all of the characters and their appearance in the scene, because the slower brother seemed to kind of just poof, here's another person to me. I guess I just didn't understand how many men were in the scene and who was going to be talking. So like I would steer her edits to kind of clarify that for me. It was really the only thing that kind of tripped me up was just like, wait a minute, there's 3 men here. I thought she was talking to this guy and this guy, or whatever is the case. Do you know what I mean? But that's where I would point her. I don't see any obvious like plot problems or lack of interesting story. Nothing like that is happening here that is a problem. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Tina?
Okay, so the couple of things that I had questions about, I kind of wonder if it's because there's a chapter that we haven't read, because she says this is chapter 3. And I remember reading the opening, but I feel like we're missing.
Okay, so there was the funeral, and then there was the scene from the handsome knight's point of view. Mm-hmm. Remember how he's like, oh, I have to stay away from there because she's whatever, she's taken. And so now this one. So
fresh off of those two, then I agree with your feedback about the slower brother, Matthew, who just seemed to like appear out of nowhere. And I was trying to find evidence that he was slow. Like I was trying to go back and find evidence in how he was talking or something that showed that he was slow, but it wasn't. So that kind of threw me a little bit.
So you felt like it was just more told to you, and it would benefit from him just kind of like having a bigger part in the scene so he could show that.
And I was just questioned whether we had been introduced to him before and we just haven't read that part. I guess that's so I was just trying to give her the benefit of the doubt on that, I guess. Also the horse that is missing, I wanted to know the significance, like, because I'm a horse girl. When I was in elementary school, I had all these plastic horses. I had like 25 of them, and I'd put them in my bag, and I'd walk to my friend Kathy's house, and she had like 25 of them, and we had a herd, and like she had 2 bunk beds in her room, and so this would be my valley over here, and that was her valley for her herd, and so it was just the whole thing.
Did you have herds or remudas?
We had her, like I had my own stallion with his mares, and she had hers, and we.
Okay.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because I do not know that word. Still don't know that word. I guess you're saying it's a synonym for herd. But if like, okay, so here's me picking up this book and opening it. Okay, I like this writing. I could probably read this book. So then I start reading and I don't know what a remuda is. I hope that you don't have to have that kind of a knowledge to enjoy this book. Like, am I like dumb for not knowing what a remuda is?
Well, no, it's just
I'd never heard of it either.
Picture going to like a riding stable and you get to walk through and pick out your horse to ride. So these guys are going on a cattle run or whatever, and they work for her. And unless they brought their own horse, they're using her horses to do the job. And so they choose which horse out of the Remuda.
Okay.
All right.
I hadn't heard that word before either. So
I mean, I don't know if it might be, if you read a bunch of Westerns, you might know that term or something. But I think it'd be kind of awkward to try to define it in the book. I mean, you could change the word to group of horses, but I mean, I don't know how you educate the reader. And then I guess it just becomes author's choice if you use the word or not, because
should probably just call it stable or something if it, was a hang up.
I'd have to go run into the dictionary.
I did go running to the dictionary.
Oh,
but anyway, I was just saying, like, I want to know why this one horse that's missing. What's the significance of that horse?
It was her horse.
What's the back? Yeah, but there has to be more than just that. It has to be.
It was a good mare, good producing mare.
I don't know. I just wanted more. I wanted more of why that horse was important.
Okay. Well, the way I took it is because she needs money because of this husband she used to have. And so if this horse is producing faithfully a horse every year that she can earn money off of, then to me, that's the significance of this horse right now. Although she might have emotional attachment to it too. We might find out later.
Yeah, I wanted emotional. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Well, and also, okay, so
feel more emotion for the horse because I'm a horse girl.
Well, or also, I mean, Tina, you bring up a good point. Also, more of that internal from the woman. So if it wasn't enough for Tina that she just really liked that horse, because let's face it, if this is a life and death situation, oh, my best friend Peter ran off, you kind of maybe just hope that she'll turn up and come back, because you can't really waste resources sending off. So without thinking that's my best producer or something that also has a financial benefit, maybe that's why it seemed kind of off to Tina, because the stakes are very high right now. And to waste time running around looking for this horse maybe just didn't seem real to her if the horse was just a favorite pony. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I could see it both ways. And again, it ends up being author's choice and what her intent is. If it's just, I love that horse so much, I will lose the farm and I will ride away on my horse. You are finding my horse. That's totally then what we need to know as readers.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say something about the Matthew thing too. Is I know this is the first time we've heard about him, and you were talking about him being slow. Well, I'm wondering if he's really as slow as he's supposed to be, because of just the paragraph. He was in every way the opposite of his older brother, taller and fair, pleasant countenance, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it says that they were an inseparable pair. John needed Matthew's compassion and work ethic, and unfortunately, Matthew needed his brother's intellect to remain a ranch hand, or at least he thought he did. So I just kind of wonder if his brother has been manipulating him all these years, saying, well, you're dumb, you need me, because his brother needed him. So
that is totally the impression that I got based on how she's like, if only Matthew had a chance to be the boss once in a while, who knows what I totally picked up on that too, Rhonda, and I love that subtlety.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you. All right, anybody else got anything to add about this?
Mm-mm.
I think I'm done.
Maybe more than she even wanted to know, but let's bring her out and see what she says.
All right.
What do you got first, Jen?
Thank you, ladies. All right, I have lots of notes, but they're all over the place because I don't have a big piece of paper. I have all these little Post-its. Okay, so as far as the Remuda, it is a common horse term, but it is, I'm using it describing the horses. So it may trip someone up to where they want to go look it up, but it will be used enough throughout the book for you to understand. And then in conversation, it just means the group of horses, just like what Rhonda said. You would never call a group of horses a herd. That would be what they call cattle. You would say maybe a team, but Remuda would have been, it's specifically for ranchers. Like this in Texas, I have to use that word to be authentic for this time period and the location. Otherwise, it wouldn't be proper. Like it wouldn't work. So I will revisit that though to make sure. Like me, I'd rather just introduce new concepts naturally. But if I have to stop and say a Remuda is the blah blah blah, then I'll do that. But I'll have to go back and look at that again. Um, do. And as far as like her, like, oh no, my horse. It's not. This isn't a Lassie moment. Like, yes, this is her favorite horse, and yes, like, but like what Rana said, like I tried pointing out, it was good mare, and she is like in financial straps. So like but she's. This is more about survival, and she's more upset about that. So I don't know if you were like maybe because like you enjoy reading like the animal person relationship, those kind of stories, but that's not what's happening here. Like it's more of like a
Well, and it was more of my questioning whether we had not read something that happened before.
mm-mm.
Like, were we supposed to know something more about this horse?
Yeah, because
Nope.
I don't think Tina was saying she wants to hear more. Oh, this was my favorite horse. I think Tina was saying that was not enough motivation for her to care so much that this horse was missing. Am I wrong, Tina?
The fact that she produced good foals.
No. Tina was hearing, that's my favorite horse, so please go find it. Is what when I was hearing Tina give the feedback, what I heard was she is saying, oh, that's my favorite horse. And that didn't seem like a good enough motivation for them to care so much that she had run away. Now, am I misrepresenting your critique, Tina?
Yeah, I don't think that's what I was thinking. I was just thinking if it was her favorite horse, like for my favorite horse, I would be like totally in love with it. So I guess that's where the disconnect is.
All right.
Like,
So I
so
just need to
she's a
clarify.
rancher, so she has a different perception of a horse than I do.
Okay. So I just,
because it's
Probably
like
just my perception.
it's a beast of burden for her. It's not a pet.
My favorite
maybe?
horse would be like my best friend in my mind. So
well, the missing horse is going to show up later, so I can explore that more because yeah. All right. So noted. I will have to look into that again and revisit that again. So let's talk
if
about.
you wanted to say her best horse instead of her favorite horse, I think that would change the.
No, I don't want to do that because of what's going to happen later. So okay. I'll have to just revisit that.
Okay.
So now I want to ask you guys then about, like you were saying, like how like you felt like the characters were like out of the blue all of a sudden. There's these new characters. This is only the third chapter, so I've got to introduce characters somehow. So I guess I'm trying to figure out what the disconnect is of the fact that now we're in a new scene with new characters, and I am trying to like introduce them in natural ways as opposed to saying, first of all, there was John, and he was like, which I'm going to have to change that name because the minute you said John's got it, I don't like John. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm thinking of Esther's story. So I didn't realize that. So I'm going to have to change it to something else. So anyway, so I guess I don't understand. I guess that's where I have a question for you guys is where did I miss on introducing characters?
I think it's because it says it's got to be done, Matthew said. And that's the first time that we'd heard of Matthew.
I do that all the time though with characters, so I must have done something wrong.
So it just felt like we should have known who Matthew was, and so that's kind of why I was like, did we not read something that between the chapters? So that made me question just that the way that it was said made me feel like I should know who he is.
I didn't have a problem with that, and I'll tell you because the first scene or the first chapter was the funeral, and a lot of these ranch heads they might have come to pay the respects, but I don't think it would have been a place to introduce them. And then the second chapter, the ranch hands wouldn't really have anything to do with this new guy. I mean, I guess they could, but so I wouldn't expect to learn them then. So I thought you did a good job of adding a bunch of characters in that we're going to need to know eventually in this emergency. Now Chappie, maybe he might be somebody that would be in one of the other scenes, but we didn't meet him before, right?
No, okay. We've only like done the funeral. And and then Cade's reaction to the funeral. Yeah.
So if Chappie had been working for them a long time and knew the owner, then he could have possibly been introduced in the first chapter to reduce the number of new people in this chapter. But anyway, I had no problem with you doing this.
Yeah, but if I had been reading the book, like if I had the whole thing and reading it without the gap, then that question wouldn't even have popped up. Is my feeling. Because I would have already known what I already read and not thinking that there was something between that guy's point of view and this scene that I missed.
I can tell you that if this were my piece and I had to go back and fix this problem, what I would do is show more than tell that they had to catch and corral all of the horses, because in that way you could say Big John threw his rope and blah blah blah, and so ran over and took the bridle of
I like
by
that.
describing the actions that the men take, you're putting them into the scene before they speak.
Yeah.
And then that way you also know a little bit about them by how they deal with the horses too, so you can show some character there. And then that fixes my problem of just like, where did you come from in the scene, without you having to be like, well, first there's John and he's the strapping cowhand, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so that's how I would fix it.
Yeah, and I'm totally on board with describing more of the action like that. Like, you guys know me, sometimes like I just really get into doing the dialogue and then I go back and fix things later, and this was a sprint. I did edit it, but it was still really just a sprint. So yeah, I like that. I could put a lot more tension in the chapter 2 with everything that's happening, and I can show, because there should be a couple more characters in here, but there's not. There's not a lot of ranch hands. That's what we're going to learn. Like, she's got a real skeleton crew, and yeah, and then that might also help me to fix that Bermuda problem, because I would be able to use it in part of the description. Yeah, so that's
blah
really
blah Bermuda or a group of horses. I don't know, but the point is also she could maybe try to help but be more in the way, and then Big John be irritable about. I mean, like, things can happen if you really like the battle scene that you did with John and Will. Yeah. It can be like that, to where it's a very poignant. This is what it's like to have to deal with horses that have gotten out or whatever.
It took me forever to write that battle scene, and I can't tell. I wish I had kept track of how many versions of it I did, but that point is really well made, because this could be a more important scene than what I've actually given it credit for. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm introducing a ton of characters, a ton of ideas, and a ton of tension. I didn't really even think about the tension in this until Rhonda brought that up, but that's probably the most important part about this chapter, is the tension and the relationships and like that.
Yeah, the stakes are really high. And to show that this is a dangerous life that she is forced to live, and at the mercy of these ranch hands, like, shows that she needs them. It's not as simple as, well, the hands went and corralled the horses. It's this dramatic thing. Right. Now imagine if the ranch hands wouldn't have been there, she would have been sunk. And you're telling the reader that by showing them this scene instead of just straight up saying that.
Right. And this is not a full scene. Like, it doesn't end where I ended it. But I haven't written past this, and I have to look at my outline again, because I'm not for sure. But I think that this is also the scene where they leave, like they quit.
Wow.
Or at least a couple. So, like, that could all build up better than what I've done,
Sure. So. I mean, because maybe something happens in the interaction while they're corralling the horses that is the last straw for whoever, right, and says that's it. I mean, maybe not fixing the rotten post, who even knows? But the point is, I mean, I think at least now, instead of just saying that doesn't work for me, at least now you have somewhere to look.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that's what I needed. That's what I was confused on. I didn't understand like exactly what was. I knew what you were saying was the problem, but I needed it narrowed in. So thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Awesome.
All right. Well,
anything else for us, babe?
Now it's time for Rhonda.
Oh, okay.
All right, Rhonda.
All right, Rhonda. Jinx.
Okay, so this is our second draft on this. So we've gotten all of our ideas down, and now we're trying to flesh it out. And we're not going to be touching it again until, well, not touching it. If you guys have suggestions today, I'll look at those again today. But we're not going to go back through this until we've got all the rest of the chapters done. So this is a heavy second edit. And I just want to, I know you guys probably don't remember a lot about Z because it's been a while since you've read anything. So I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, before you go into isolation, I have to know. Okay, maybe it'll just be a question that you'll answer when you come out. Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Catch you on the flip side, baby. All right. So here we are. Here's my question that I was going to ask Rhonda, but I would like to know, maybe you guys already know the answer and I am not a careful reader or friend because I do not know. Does the murder happen here? Like, is this whole story, like, is knowing all of these details about this house important? I have to know, like, because I need to understand why we know what color the walls are and that the bookcases are oak and all of that. Like, if the murder happens here, and so we need to know that the conservatory has a secret passage to the kitchen, then I have a different bunch of feedback for this piece than otherwise. So can you guys tell me that answer?
I have a feeling that this is a murder as well. But this murder happened years ago. I don't think it's not the murder. I don't think that we start the story with.
What was the murder that we started the story with? Help me out.
I don't think we've seen it.
Oh, okay.
You know what? We started the story with her getting ready in her room to go on this
to go on the date.
Yes. So, and I think that this was originally supposed to be a romance, but then they decided that that wouldn't work as a giveaway because they don't write romance, they write mystery. So then I think that she's trying to switch it up. So this could be the murder. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't really have the answer for that.
So we're not trying to solve the naked guy hanging murder, or are we? Do we know?
Don't think we are, but I think that that is going to have something to do with the murder that we are trying to solve. That's
and I just have to say, my first piece of bread is the man who is naked hanging and them talking about it. That is my first piece of bread. En flagrante, isn't that the right way to say it? Just hung out there for all the world to see, and he knew his wife was coming home from out of town. So that's supposed to be staged as like a suicide, but she's not sure. But we don't know if that's the mystery that they're going to delve into trying to solve, but we suspect not. So we're all in agreement about this?
Tina, you got to speak up because you're more of a mystery reader than I am, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is what they're... I wonder if they're going to try to look into it and then come upon something bigger.
Or find things in the moldy books that she's picking up, or behind maybe the broken bookcases are broken on purpose. So that as they start to tear things apart, they find things. I mean,
something, I don't know. I feel like this house is at the center of whatever the mystery is going to be.
Yep, I think so too.
And she left us like into this really mysterious place at the end where there's a knock and they're both like, who could that be? And then the door is opening. So I don't know. And that's what makes me want to keep reading. To find out, are they going to solve this mystery of why this guy was hanging there? Because it's obvious she set that up. Was it really a suicide or was it not? So that question is hanging there in the air, kind of.
And also, the beginning of this chapter felt out of left field to me. I don't remember a chapter where he's like, well, come on in and tell me the story about the ghost that haunts this house. Like, did I just not remember it, or is it a missing chapter? That's a question I have for Rhonda.
Yeah, I remember him talking about the house or whatever, and then their date or whatever, but I don't remember anything leading up to this. My bread for this is that I'm glad that we're finally really getting to know the characters Z and Tom, as opposed to like then they carried potato salad in, and then this person's throwing horses. I feel like we're finally getting to the story. My meat is that I still don't know Z and Tom. Like I can't, as I read this, I don't know whose perspective it's in. Like we're not inside anyone. And maybe the story isn't going to be written from any one person's perspective. Maybe it's going to be like this, like third person, like, not inside anyone's head. But that'll be, that's a choice. But like, I don't know, like, is Tom like hunky, and is he having any effect on her, and vice versa? Like even little bits of like, she does say in here like that he's watching her at one point, right? And I thought, gosh, if you would have just paused there a little bit longer. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, now I can't find it because I didn't mark that up. But like just a little bit more of like that they are in like dating, like this. Like if we were just given this piece here, we'd have no clue they're on a date. He could be a 75-year-old man and she could be a teenager, there's a little bit of hints, but we don't really know because we don't get anything internal. So
I really wonder if this is a place where the writers are afraid to take risk or to be vulnerable, or because writing character reveals yourself. And it's possible that they're kind of afraid to input any sort of that kind of dimension, unless it's a choice they're making, like you said, Jen. I mean, I'm currently reading a mystery series, and it's making me crazy because of the third person omniscient that happens on occasion once in a while. Ugh. So, I mean, I guess if you pick a point of view and are consistent with it, okay. But then I think it's going to have to be finessed a little better, because the laundry list, which is literally what it felt like, of the details of the house, was really kind of clunky and hard for me to get through. Like, you know what I mean? Without the characters' feelings wrapped around it to soften it, it just was tough to sludge through.
I think that's the key. I don't think it was too much description, because I think that, like what Tina said, is I think that the house is the center of this mystery. So I think that the description was good, and I think it wouldn't have been clunky to you if we'd had more of the personal interaction or the internal. I have to take it back a little bit. She does say here Z noticed in the first paragraph. So we're supposedly in Z's head. So I want more of Z's. I want more of, like, you know, how she's feeling. I mean, here she is. This is, I don't remember, is this like the 50s, the 40s? And she's in this like old kind of abandoned home alone with this date. Like, there should be some sort of internal something going on. And if there's not, then we need to know about that. If she's not feeling anything internally, then that's part of the character too, you know? So.
Yes, because if you think about, she was like, she had that relationship with the Ralph guy. So so yeah, there's a lot of ground that could be covered here. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right, Jennifer, because before you mentioned that there was no, like, you couldn't tell what, like, you totally, your critique really helped me to understand why I felt like it was too much. Like, it's totally just missing that internal and feels of a real human experience. It's, you know what I mean? So yeah, right on. I totally agree with your assessment. Tina, what do you have to say?
I agree too. I was going to say that I felt like the description was too much, and I needed more direction of what was supposed to be significant about the description. And so if we had some internalizations, that might be clearer and it might feel more organic.
Yeah, so she sees all this stuff. What does she think of it? It's beautiful. It's ugly. We hear grimy and dirty, but those feel more like facts to me than, you know, reactions or opinions. So
I thought this was Rhonda and her love of history describing a house that she would love to see. Like, that's how I felt about the description at the first.
And I think that's awesome, because I think that she's trying to create for us two people who would be just as jazzed about it as she would be. Mm-hmm. So maybe she needs to write it like, I turn my eyes and I see the beautiful blah-de-de-blah, and then all of those things that she feels, if she were the one walking through the house, she needs to turn around and stick them into, what's the character? I want to call her Beryl. That's not the right person.
Z.
Stick it into Z, because I'm sure if she wrote this as, I felt this in this way about what I was seeing, it would feel different.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see Z falling in love with this house and then trying to guard her emotions about the house because she doesn't want him to think that, because it's his house. And that's a lot of implications, right? I know I'm the romance writer, you know, so I know that, like, that's not what she's writing, but I still think that would be kind of yummy for us to see her, because that, I think that is part of who Z is. Like, she likes history. She's like into the architect. That's why he's taking her there. And that's part of what's going to connect these two characters. And I would like to see a little bit more of that. I think that would be pretty cool. And that could be something she puts inside the head of her, like, guarding, like, you know, really falling in love with this house, but like not wanting to show that, because what would that say about the fact that he owns this house, and like, you know, implications of that. So that I would like to see that. And I like the description, but I think it's because, like, what I was already cluing into what Tina brought up is, I do think that there's a point for there to be the broken down bookcases, and they're going to have to start working on those. And if there's not, then maybe she should revisit that. But that's what I'm guessing is why we're getting all that description.
Well, and I had a question about the 2 bookcases that were next to the pristine mirror. Were they also ruined? That was not clear to me. Although the book on the shelf was destroyed, when they entered the room, most of the bookcases were damaged or warped or whatever. So, is she indicating that these were not? And that's just like a piddly thing. But if it's important to whatever mystery they're going to throw at us, that needs to be clarified.
Agreed.
And so then I had some things that were also bread because I feel like I've been, heaping on the pastrami or something. She had something like more glamorous times. There's a couple turns of phrase. My document won't scroll. That were really lovely in here. I noted them on the edit that I did, and I actually put in there, oh my goodness, this is a really amazing turn of phrase. So gosh, I wish I could find even one. In grander days, loved it. The stairway that guarded by a heavy wooden banister, that just totally makes imagery in your mind that is different than just heavy wooden banister. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some real brilliance in these turns of phrases here.
Agreed.
So my wish list for this piece, because I absolutely love the mystery part of it at the end where she's talking about the guy hanging from the banister. My wish list would be for her to walk in and make a comment about the guy hanging from the banister in the beginning before we get the description. Or somehow tie that in so that we've already got that taste of mystery. So then we're looking for clues.
So maybe
when she's doing the describing.
So maybe she could say before she told the story about the death of old man so-and-so, she wanted to have the tour of the house. Like, I mean, just kind of a hint at what's coming, you're saying?
Yeah, just a hint of the mystery to start with.
So I would agree with you.
Yeah, so that the description would be tastier.
Yeah, because when she's like, before she told her story, and really I didn't know, was she going to tell a story like John's story about the battle of whatever? Or is she going to tell a story about like her love life? Like, because again, I don't remember any lead up to, I'll tell you the history behind that old house. Okay, well, come on in and tell me. It felt very random. So yes, if you just added a little savory nugget of before she started the tale of the naked hanging guy or whatever. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Honestly, I like the way she did it, but I don't read mystery, so maybe that's the difference. Like, I like that, like, she ends the scene with like telling us about that and that, but that's me. Again, I don't read mystery, so that's probably part of it. So,
well, it just kind of probably goes to show that it's author's choice. I mean, you're not gonna hit it with every reader, and it certainly isn't something that would make me throw a book down in disgust.
Right.
So I think it's just it's a what do you think works better as the artist, you know?
I do know I got excited when she started talking about that, and I was like, oh, good. Here's where we're getting to the good stuff.
All right.
Like, that was my...
Yeah, and I do have a question about that because I think this is supposed to be like a cozy genre or something. But I will say of late, when I've been listening on audiobooks to mysteries, I get a little bit irked if I don't have the mystery within however long. Like, I couldn't say how many chapters because I'm listening and it feels like I've been listening to this thing for an hour and a half and I still have no idea what the mystery is. I just wonder if there's any risk here that they're taking too long to kind of get to the point, so to speak. I don't know, because I don't know if cozy is a little different.
All right, well, that's a question we can ask her if we decide to let her out ever.
Never. She's never coming out till 4:30.
Well, I have to leave at 4:15. So.
All right, we'll let you out, Rhonda.
Unmute yourself.
I said, come out, Rhonda. This is a great episode.
Oh, it's a big house. Sorry. All right. Jennifer, welcome to the world of mystery.
Did I do
We're
good?
glad to have you. Well, when you were talking about the house, yes, you are right on. The house is very central to not only this story, but all of the stories in the series.
Ah.
Yes. And I'm not giving you guys any more hints besides that. Of course, Tina, you know, your thoughts are right on. It's so obvious you're a fan of this. Not this particular story, but just mysteries.
Yeah, because you're not a fan of this story, of course.
I'm totally a fan of the story.
Let's see.
I'm salivating for more. You can't tell, like drooling down my chin.
Okay. So I will tell you that what you're reading right now is not the mystery. The guy dangling. Okay. Think David Carradine and let's see, the NXS, Michael Hutchins deaths, and you will understand what this is about. And this is actually a true story that happened in Grand Blanc in 1908. And so this is just to add some history to the story, but then there's going to be a connection with some other characters in the story. And so anyway, that's why there's in there right now. So when we get a little bit farther along, if you think it's not necessary, well,
I don't understand your reference to David Carradine and to the NXS lead singer. Like, was there?
It's
I know.
yeah.
Go ahead. What?
It's
autoerotic asphyxiation.
Oh.
Yeah. So he wasn't intending to commit suicide. This fellow wasn't. But it was a huge embarrassment to the family. And so that is the necessary part that we're taking away from this.
Okay, Rhonda, this is a button show moment for me because you're telling me that sort of a thing happened in way back once upon a time. Like this is not something that these kids today just stumbled upon.
Yes, I also was shocked. I had no idea that they were so progressive back then. And actually the reason I found out, this is an aside, is there's a medical examiner in a particular area of the state of Michigan who gave an oral history, and he told a few stories about some, things that people may not want to tell on their own that he found out as the medical examiner.
Wow.
And, anyway, I never knew even that this was a thing until I heard his oral history, and then I looked it up in the newspaper, and there it was. In fact, I'll send you guys the article.
So they published that in the newspaper?
Oh, yes. Those articles I've been sending you, like the guy carrying his lunch home and getting hit by the train, and oh yeah, they're very.
No, but
detailed.
like about the fact that
way he died.
The way he died.
Yeah.
What?
I'll send you the article.
Okay. So hold on. So now the fact of like how they found him, but they were able to solve what happened, and they shared that in the newspaper. Like, I mean, I get it now. I mean, like they share all kinds of crap on the news, but what?
Oh yeah. I don't think they use the term that's used today for that.
Euphemism? Would they use euphemism?
What term did you use?
This is I can't remember. I'll
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tweet it out later.
I'm
just kidding. For those of you that were on the Postcast with us, this is the term you're looking for.
Yeah.
And
I'm
you're
so
like,
speechless right now.
I know. And Rhonda's like, this is an aside. And I'm like, well, I sure hope so. I sure hope that this is totally.
But this scene does affect, like, it has to do with the actual mystery, right? Like, this is not, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'd be very disappointed if it didn't.
Value.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Let's see. What else did you guys say? Will they find things in the house? Yes, that is an extremely important part of the plot.
So the broken bookcases are there's a purpose for that. Yay! Never mind. You don't have to answer that.
Okay. The scene before. Did you guys read a scene about them going to the hot dog stand?
No.
Okay. So then there are some things you're missing. Let's see. Getting to know the characters. Okay. The hot dog scene, Stan. I probably should have you guys read that because there is a little bit of a romance aspect to that, but not. It's not going to be overly romance. Let's see.
Not overly romantical.
Yes, exactly. Let's see. So, okay, we do need internal. You're absolutely right. Let's see. I really love the idea. I'm sorry I don't remember who said this, but make Z fall in love with the house, but not let him, be sort of coy about it. I love that idea. So we will be throwing some of that in. So anyway, thank you for the feedback, you guys. I really appreciate it.
So how long before we have a dead body or some kind of a mystery that is actually the mystery that we're looking for?
Well, you're right about that. We need to get that in there pretty soon. They say that it's supposed to be in the first 25% of the book. And at the rate we're going right now, we are just right now at that. So the scene that Mom is going to be writing on the schedule tomorrow is the murder scene.
Okay.
So there's one scene and then this next one. But, we're probably going to have to move that up. So we'll look at that.
Can I just say, Jen has always kind of been like, okay, so here's how it's supposed to work. They almost are together, then they're not together. And she had very much has said on a couple of occasions what that kind of formula or whatever is. So you just said 25%. So what structure are you guys working off of? I think that's informative.
That's just a cozy mystery trope. It should be within the first. So if you've got 20 chapters, it should be in the first 5 chapters. If not immediately.
And that's so what are the other key points? So you need to have your murder by 25% in, then you need, do you know what I'm saying? Like, are there other things that you guys are like working to fit in according to a prescription or outline or formula of some kind?
Well, at the 75% mark, that's when the sleuth needs to gather up her group of people who are going to help her solve the mystery. And then the rest of the book from there out will be mystery. So between the 25% and the 75%, that is all making everybody look like a suspect.
Putting in the red herrings and all that stuff.
Yep.
All right. So I have a couple thoughts now that you've shared that, and not to like really elongate this, but my mind is just really spinning right now. Because I'm in the middle of like editing book 3 as well. I think the hardest thing for me with editing is deciding really what's important and what's not, because I have got to cut some stuff out of still more. And I'm like, all right, I'm cutting this part out. And then I pull the chapter up and I'm like, no, I love this. I love what it does. It moves. It's doing something in the story. It's a really hard place to be. And so as you're talking, I'm like, get that murder in there as fast as possible. Have you considered, I teased earlier in my critique about, the carrying the potato salad and, like that. Have you considered moving that scene later? Get us right into the middle of the date. Get us right there with it, and then show us the house and then the murder. And then as you're trying to like make everyone a suspect, it would make a whole lot more sense to me as a reader that I'm in the middle of this innocuous situation, but I'm like seeing all these suspects.
Yeah.
We have earmarked some scenes for moving back, but then also we've earmarked some that are going to be just taken right out and put on our blog as additional. Hey, come to our blog, and this is information that we don't need in the book, but you can get to know the characters a little bit better. I cannot get enough of my favorite characters. So if they're not in a second book, if there is a blog for me to go to and I can learn like, oh, this is a scene with her in it, but it's not in any book, then I would just be all over that.
Yeah.
I wish more people would do that. So we're going to do that.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, because it sounds like a lot of time of everybody looking like a suspect and whatever. And the minute Jennifer said, make that part of that 50% that has to be, I'm like, what a brilliant idea, because you introduce so many characters there. And, then you have the opportunity to say, that seemed, odd, or like whatever. The reader can then have a reason for wanting to pay attention to all of these things that are happening. So I think that's good advice.
And that opens up your first 25% to make us fall in love with Z and
Nettie
and because you can be showing us that Z is falling in love with this guy maybe or whatever. Like you can really focus on a few characters, get us to care about those characters, because I don't care what genre it is. If we don't care about the characters, we're not going to care about the story. So even though the story is the novel, you got to do the story. You got to make us fall in love with the characters. And if you could like shorten down the time till we get to the take some of that stuff out that you put it elsewhere and really make us care about the characters, I think that's going to really make us care about the rest of the story too. If that makes sense.
And one more thing, which is in my notes, Nettie has a boyfriend.
What? How did I miss that? Was that in what we read?
So is that a mistake? Because someone's boyfriend is
she has a friend who is a boy. I don't know if you recognize the name of the dangler, but
that just sounds. I'm not. Never mind. Never mind.
Well, I mean, so many options for dangling and that.
He named it?
Gosh. Oh my gosh. What was the name, please?
Well, you may not remember this from the one with Jenny and Nettie, but the man who was swinging there, his name was Mr. Petty.
So this is like his ancestor or something, grandfather, father or something, the one that died?
Well, an ancestor. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And he's going to be somebody else's direct embarrassing ancestor.
So in the Nettie Jenny one, the Mr. Petty dangles too?
No. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a bad guy. I mean, he can do whatever he wants in the privacy of his home, I suppose.
It'd be awesome. It'd be totally awesome if he, like, at some point, that Mr. Petty is dangling a pencil off his finger or something, just for the, just for a little recap.
My word.
Connection.
Okay. So my question was about Nettie's boyfriend. So it was jarring to read that because to me, yes, I did not read her friend that's a boy.
Oh, okay.
I read boyfriend. So I'm like, Nettie has a boyfriend? Mm-hmm. And that to me is like a weird way to introduce that to me, if that was what you meant. So if that's not what you meant, do you guys agree or disagree how it reads? You guys didn't catch it, I guess.
To find it.
It's at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Instead of saying boyfriend says her friend so and so.
She says her boyfriend.
Let's say her friend Fred is a relationship, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally.
And you could say it was a friend and a boy at the same time because it would be a boy's name.
Mm-hmm. But do you guys think that she even needs to change it? Or was that just me stumbling on that word?
No, I think I read it as a boyfriend, like a love interest, and I just kind of zipped on past it that it was Nettie. Like, so.
We probably should change that because, you know, back in the day, this is the one that said in the 50s. So people had girlfriends and boyfriends that were just friends. So we will change that because they're not reading it in the 50s. They'll be reading it.
That's one of those things to think about, though. But true. I mean, like with Remuda, if I can't fix that in there, I'm going to have to find a way around it and still be authentic. So, yeah, it's one of those things that as a writer of history, like you have to figure it out. Yeah.
Right. Well, I was just, that's the reason I was asking, because again, I didn't know if it was a reader issue, like an individual, this reader has the issue, right?
Yeah. So I think we'll have to change that.
All right. So anything else, Rhonda?
No, I am so well fed and I've got so many thoughts. I really need to get to writing. So if you guys could just end this, that'd be great.
That's really good because I have to go to the bathroom really, really bad. So I'm totally on board with ending this really fast.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. You guys are awesome. I really enjoy every week when we do this.
Me too. It's a good week. Thanks a lot, you guys.
And we thank all of you that also support this ministry. We do see it as a ministry for just a couple bucks a month. We just really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.